All right, folks, gather round, because it's that time of year again. The air is crisp, the leaves are turning, and the pumpkins are practically begging to be carved. And who better to answer that call than our favorite yellow troublemakers? Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today, we're diving into a project of epic, gorgeous proportions with Kevin, Stuart, and Bob. It all started with a simple, noble idea. Kevin, ever the leader, stood before a pumpkin that was, to be fair, a bit ambitious. It wasn't just a pumpkin. It was a veritable orange monolith, a titan of the pumpkin patch. Kevin had the master plan, a vision of spooky perfection that would surely win them the neighborhood carving contest. He had blueprints. He had diagrams. He had a very serious, managerial look on his face. He pointed authoritatively at the pumpkin, then at his two trusty, if slightly less focused, companions. The mission. Operation Jack-O-Lantern. Stuart, always the cool one, was assigned the heavy machinery. He strutted up to the tool of choice, a saw. But this wasn't just any saw. It was a comically oversized two-man logging saw that probably weighed more than Stuart himself. He grabbed one handle with both hands, grunted, and tried to lift it. The saw didn't budge. He tried again, putting his whole body into it, his single eye bulging with effort. The saw tipped and promptly dragged a struggling Stuart right across the lawn. So, the saw part of the plan was off to a less than stellar start. It looked less like carving and more like an involuntary saw-sledding adventure. And then there was Bob. Sweet, innocent Bob. His tool, a spoon. Not a big, sturdy, scooping spoon, mind you, but a regular teaspoon. He held it up with immense pride, his eyes wide with excitement. He was the official scooper, the master of degutting, the purveyor of pumpkin pulp. While Kevin tried to direct the chaos and Stuart wrestled with his metallic nemesis, Bob eagerly awaited his moment to shine. He was ready to dive in, literally. Kevin, seeing Stuart's battle with the saw was a lost cause, decided to take a more direct approach. He found a butter knife. Yes, a butter knife. He approached the pumpkin behemoth with the confidence of a knight facing a dragon, brandishing his tiny weapon. He tapped the thick orange rind. Asterisk, tink, tink, asterisk, the knife made absolutely no impression. He pushed harder. The knife bent. Kevin looked at the bent knife, then at the pumpkin, his confident expression slowly melting into one of pure frustration. Plan A and Plan B were officially flops. Finally, after a lengthy team huddle, which mostly involved a lot of gesturing and high-pitched bellows, they decided on a group effort, all three of them, using a combination of the useless butter knife, Stuart's guitar don't ask, and Bob's tiny spoon, managed to punch a small, sad hole in the side of the pumpkin. It wasn't the grinning ghoul Kevin had envisioned, but it was a start. Now for the best part, the scooping. Bob, spoon at the ready, dove headfirst into the hole. A moment later, pumpkin guts and seeds erupted from the opening like a volcano, coating a startled Stuart from head to toe. Stuart, now looking like a seedy orange monster, sputtered and shook his head, sending pulp flying everywhere. Bob popped his head back out, completely covered in goo, a single seed stuck to his goggle, and gave a triumphant ta-da. He was having the time of his life. The carving process was unconventional. Instead of a face, their combined efforts resulted in a lopsided, vaguely circular hole. It looked less like a jack-o'-lantern and more like the pumpkin had been in a minor fender bender. But they were proud. It was their creation. They high-fived, which mostly just spread more pumpkin slime between them. With their masterpiece complete, only one thing remained. The candle. Kevin carefully lowered a tiny tea light into the pumpkin's cavity. He struck a match, the flame flickering to life. It was a moment of pure magic. This was it. The grand finale. Stuart, in a moment of patriotic fervor, decided to plant a small minion flag next to the opening to claim their territory. A noble gesture. Really? Except the flag was made of paper, and he planted it just a little too close to the candle's flame. Whoosh! In an instant, the tiny flag went up in a puff of smoke and fire. Panic. Absolute, unfiltered minion panic. Kevin's eyes went wide. Stuart screamed a high-pitched "bah," and Bob just pointed, his mouth a perfect O of surprise. Chaos erupted! Stuart grabbed a water gun and started spraying wildly, dousing the candle, the pumpkin, Kevin, Bob, and most of the surrounding lawn. Water and pumpkin guts flew in every direction. In the end, their pumpkin wasn't scary. It was a soggy, slightly burnt, misshapen mess. But as they stood there, dripping wet and covered in pulp, looking at the smoldering remains of their flag, something else cut through the chaos. A loud, shrill, piercing noise. Beep! 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 In their frantic firefighting efforts, they had managed to set off the smoke alarm inside the house. The pumpkin might not have scared anyone, but the piercing shriek of the fire alarm certainly did. They looked at each other, then at the house, and then they did what minions do best. They ran. And that, my friends, is the story of the great minion pumpkin carving disaster. It just goes to show that sometimes the process is far more entertaining than the results. I hope you all got a good laugh out of that. If you enjoyed this little tale of creative chaos, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. And if you want to see more hilarious adventures, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.